Hello everybody, Math 12 Quarter 1, Week 1 through Week 9 lesson plans for Math 12. Let's go right into Math 12 Quarter 1, Weeks 1 through Week 9 lesson plans. So, to cover that, students, you need to put your name, date here. And this is for video editions and PowerPoint editions. Let's go right into it right now. Let's go right into Math 12 Quarter 1 Week 1 lessons. So we have a pretest. We have a pre-calc pretest for Quarter 1. And for our lessons, we start out 1.1, lines in the plane, classwork part 1, part 2, part 3. 1.1 lines in a plane for homework part 1, 2, and 3. Then we go to 2.1 quadratic functions, classwork part 1, part 2. Then 2.1 quadratic functions, homework part 1, part 2. And then the standards that we have here is here. I think I should have a blow up on that. I think it's Common Core FIF.9, compare properties of two functions, each represented in a different way, that is algebraically, graphically, numerically, in tables or by verbal descriptions. So we get into quadratics, and we're going to also get into functions and their graphs. How their graphs are, you can tell by their graphs what they are. And then learning targets is use slope to identify parallel and perpendicular lines. That'd be from the algebraic representation. And then analyze graphs or quadratic functions. So we're going to do that here for week 1 of Math 12. And then our resources, materials, animated PowerPoints, and/or MP4 versions of all lessons, classwork, homework, quiz, test, worksheets. So your lessons are going to be in animated PowerPoints and video. And then you can access those 24/7. Activities and tasks, all classwork sheets are closed exercised, meaning you got to fill in the blanks of the lesson sheets from PowerPoints or videos, homework, quizzes, tests, assignments, available online with corrections provided after submission date, so you get all corrections and explanations. And then access for all. Available in over 100 languages, available online 24/7, closed caption for hearing impaired, audio for sight impaired. And then your classwork points are 214 for week 1, 18 points in note taking, 444 points of homework. And then your test, you have your pre-test is 29 points, and then the total for week 1 is 705 points. Go right into week 2. What are we going to do in week 2 for Math 12 Quarter 1? Here's our assignments here, which are 2.2 polynomial functions, higher degree, pre-calculus, classwork part 1. And then we go into 2.2 polynomial functions, higher degree, pre-calculus, homework part 1. So we cover that. And then we go 2.3 real zeros, pre-calculus, classwork part 1 and 2. Then 2.3 real zeros, pre-calculus, homework part 1, 2, and 3. So there's your week 2. And then standards, the main standard is graph, which is FIF.7c, graph polynomial functions, identifying zeros when suitable. Factorizations are available, and showing end behavior. So we get into that. And then our intro will be polynomial and rational functions, which we've covered. And then your learning targets will be use the leading coefficient test, to determine the end behavior of graphs of polynomial functions, and use long division to divide polynomials by other polynomials. Use synthetic division to divide polynomials by binomials of the form of x minus a. Use the remainder and factor theorems. We'll be doing that in week 2. And then resources, materials, are animated PowerPoints and video versions of all lessons, classwork, homework, quiz, test worksheets. And that includes solution of videos as well, and PowerPoints. Activities and tasks. All class worksheets are closed exercise from PowerPoints or MP4s. Homework, quizzes, test assignments available online with corrections provided after submission dates. And then access for all. Available in over 100 languages. Available online 24/7. Closed captioned for hearing impaired. Audio for sight impaired. So your classwork points are 204 classwork points, 214 note-taking points. Homework is 335 points. Quiz 0, test 0. So the total for week 2 is 753 points for Math 12 Quarter 1 week 2. Let's go into what we cover. Let's go right into our week 3, Math 12 Quarter 1 week 3. And then these are the lessons for week 3, which is 2.3 real zeros. Homework part 4, we start there, finish up at 2.3, and then 2.4, we go into complex numbers, classwork part 1, part 2, part 3, part 1, part 2, wait a minute, classwork part 1 only, okay, and then our homework 2.4, complex numbers, homework part 1, 2, 3, and 4, 4-part homework there. And then we go into 2.5, Fundamental Theorem of Algebra, classwork part 1, classwork part 2. So that's what we do here in week 3. And then one of our major Common Core standards is FIF.7c, graph polynomial functions, identifying zeros when suitable factorizations are available, and showing end behavior again. And our introduction is use the rational zero test to determine possible rational zeros of polynomial functions. And then our learning targets will be use Descartes' rule of signs and the upper and lower bound rules to find zeros of polynomials. We'll be getting involved with that. Resources, materials, animated PowerPoints, MP4 versions of lessons, classwork, homework, quiz, test, worksheets, activities, and tasks. All class worksheets are closed exercised from PowerPoints or MP4s. Homework, quizzes, and test assignments available online with corrections provided after submission dates, and then access for all. Available in over 100 languages, available online 24/7, closed caption for hearing impaired, audio for sight impaired. Classwork points are at 180 classwork points. Note taking is 4 points. Homework is 362 points of homework. Quiz is 0, test is 0. So your total is 546 points for week 3. So going up here to Math 12 Quarter 1 week 4. Here's our lessons here, which is 2.5 Theorem of Algebra Pre-Calc Homework Part 1. So we finish up with 2.5. Then we go into 2.6, Rational Functions and Asymptotes, classwork 1, part 1, part 2. And then 2.6 rational functions and asymptotes. Homework part 1, part 2, part 3. And then we go into 2.7, graphs of rational functions, classwork part 1, part 2, and then we go 2.7, graphs of rational functions. Pre-calculus homework part 1. So this will be cover this week, week 4. And then our predominant standard is FIF.7D, graph rational functions identifying zeros and asymptotes. When suitable, factorizations are available and showing end behavior. So that's what we're focusing here on week 4. Find the domains of rational functions, our intro here, and then find vertical and horizontal asymptotes of graphs of rational functions. And then our learning target, oh wait a minute, we have a test here, chapter 2 test in week 4, polynomial rational functions. So we do have a test in week 4. And then our learning targets are analyze and sketch graphs of rational functions. Sketch graphs of rational functions that have slant asymptotes. Use graphs of rational functions to model and solve real life problems. So we're going to get into applying this to real life stuff. And then resources and materials. Animated PowerPoints and MP4 versions of all lessons, classwork, homework, quiz, test worksheets, activities, and tasks. All classwork sheets are closed exercise from PowerPoints or MP4s. Homework, quizzes, test assignments available online with corrections provided after submission dates. And then access for all. Available in over 100 languages. Available online 24/7. Closed caption for hearing impaired. Audio for sight impaired. And then your classwork points are 192. Note taking's 8 points. Homework is 380 points. And then we have 0 points for quiz. Test is 65 points. That's this test up here. And so the total for week 4 is 645 points. So let's go right into Math 12 Corner 1 week 5. So here's our lessons there. What are they? So we go into 2.7, graphs of rational functions, homework part 2, 3, and 4. And then we go into 2.8, quadratic models, classwork part 1, 2, and 2.8, quadratic models, homework part 1 and 2. And then we go into 2.9, chapter 2, review and summary, classwork part 1. And then we go into chapter 2, review and summary, homework part 1, 2, and 3. So we're finishing up here chapter 2. And the dominant standard here is Common Core S.ID.6 represent data on 2 quantitative variables on a scatter plot and describe how the variables are related. So that's our thing for week 5. So the intro into week 5 is analyze and sketch graphs of rational function. We've been doing that. It sketched graphs of rational functions that have slant asymptotes. We've been doing that as well. So we're going to continue with that. Use graphs of rational functions to model and solve real life problems. So that's what this week is about. And then our resource materials, animated PowerPoints, MP4 versions of lessons, classwork, homework, quiz, test, worksheets, activities and tasks. All class worksheets are closed exercise from PowerPoints or MP4s. Homework, quizzes, and test assignments available online with corrections provided after submission dates. And then access, available in over 100 languages, available online 24/7. Closed caption for hearing impaired, audio for sight impaired. And then our classwork points for week 5, 280 points. Note taking is 8 points. Homework is 712 points. So homework, huge amounts of homework. And then quiz 0, test 0. So it still comes out to 1,000 points for week 5, which is gigantic. Our math 12 quarter 1 week 6 lessons. Here they are. So we go into 3.1. Exponential functions, graphs, classwork part 1, part 2, and then 3.1 exponential functions and graphs, homework part 1, part 2, part 3. And then we go in, start into 3.2 logs and their graphs, classwork part 1. So there's your week 6 there, lessons. And then we have a test. We have chapter 2 test, part 2. I think the week 6 starts out with that, with this chapter 2 test. And then the standards, the one major standard is F.LE.4 for exponential models. Express as a logarithm the solution to AB to the CT power equals D, where A, C, and D are numbers, and the base B is 2, 10, or E. Evaluate the logarithm using technology, so using a lot of calculator work in here. The intro to week 6 is recognize, evaluate, and graph exponential functions with base E. That's our intro. And then your learning targets are recognize, evaluate, and graph exponential functions with base E. And then also recognize and evaluate logarithmic functions with base A. Graph logarithmic functions with base A. And then resources, materials, animated PowerPoints, and or MP4 versions of lessons, classwork, homework, quiz, test, worksheets, activities, and tasks. All class worksheets are closed exercise from PowerPoints or MP4s. Homework, quizzes, and test assignments available online with corrections provided after submission dates. Access for all. Available in over 100 languages. Available online 24/7. Closed caption for hearing impaired. Audio for sight impaired. And then classwork points are 240. Note taking is 20 points. Homework is 273 points of homework. Quiz 0. Test. You have a test here of 70 points. So your total for week 6 is 603 points. And going into your math 12 quarter 1 week 7, here are lessons for week 7, and they are 3.2 logs and their graphs, classwork part 2, And then 3.2 log functions, homework part 1, 2, and 3. And then 3.3 property of logarithms, classwork part 1. And property of logarithms, homework part 1. And then 3.4 solving exponential log equations, classwork part 1 and part 2. So that's how we finish up 3.4. And then the standard here for week 7 is Common Core 9 through 12, point F, point LE, point 4 for exponential models expressed as a logarithm. The solution to AB to the CT power equals D, where A, C, and D are numbers, and the base B is 210 or E. Evaluate the logarithm using technology. So our intro is recognizing evaluate logarithmic functions with base A, graph logarithmic functions with base A, learning targets, rewrite logarithms with different bases, use properties of logarithms to evaluate or rewrite logarithmic expressions, and then solve simple exponential and logarithmic equations, solve more complicated exponential equations. Resources, materials, animated PowerPoints, and or MP4 versions of lessons, classwork, homework, quiz, test, worksheets, activities, and tasks. All classwork sheets are closed exercised. From PowerPoints or MP4s, homework quizzes, and test assignments available online with corrections provided after submission dates. And then access for all, available in over 100 languages, available online 24/7, closed caption for hearing impaired, audio for sight impaired. Classwork points, 322 classwork points, 10 points of note-taking. Homework is 433 points. Quiz 0, test 0, so your total for week 7 is 765 points for week 7. Right into our Math 12 Quarter 1 Week 8 lessons. And what they are we start out here at 3.4, solving exponential log equations, classwork part 3. 3.4, solving exponential log equations, homework part 1, 2, and 3. Then we go 3.5, exponential and logarithmic models, classwork part 1, 2, and 3. And then 3.5, exponential and logarithmic models, homework part 1 and 2. So there's your week 8. And then we have a test here, chapter 3 test, part 1, for week 8. And then our standard for week 8 is Common Core 9 through 12, point F, point LE, point 4 for exponential models expressed as a logarithm. The solution to AB to the CT power equals D, where A, C, and D are numbers, and the base B is 210 or E. Evaluate the logarithm using technology. And our intro is solve simple exponential and logarithmic equations, solve more complicated exponential equations. And then our learning targets are recognize the 5 most common types of models involving exponential or logarithmic functions. Use growth and decay functions to real-time problems. So we're going to use exponential growth and decay models to find answers to real-life problems. And then resources, materials, animated PowerPoints, and MP4 versions of lessons, classwork, homework, quiz, test, worksheets, activities, and tasks. All class worksheets are closed exercise. From PowerPoints or MP4s, homework, quizzes, and test assignments available online, with corrections provided after submission dates. Access for all. Available in over 100 languages. Available online 24/7. Closed caption for hearing impaired. Audio for sight impaired. And then classwork is 220 points. Note taking is 10 points. Homework is 416 points. Quiz 0, we got a test of 78 points. So the total for week 8 is 724 points. Let's go right into week 9. What's on week 9 of Math 12 quarter 1? So here they are. Here's your lessons. And they are 3.5 exponential and logarithmic models. Homework part 3. And then 3.6 nonlinear models, classwork part 1, 2, and 3. And then 3.6 nonlinear models, homework part 1 and 2. And then we go into our chapter 3 exponential and logarithmic review and summary, classwork part 1. And then chapter 3 exponential and log functions, review and summary, homework part 1, 2, and 3. And then chapter 3, it might be I think it's homework part 4. So there's like homework part 4 here, and we have our test. We have the test that finishes out the quarter 1 here, which is chapter 3 exponential and log functions, test part 2. That's your final test. And then the standards are 9 through 12, point S, point ID, point 6a. Fit a function to the data. Use functions fitted to data to solve problems in the context of the data. So our intro is recognize the 5 more common types of models involving exponential and logarithmic functions. Use exponential growth and decay functions to basically solve real-life problems, is what that amounts to as your intro. And then your learning targets is solving simple exponential and logarithmic equations, solve more complicated exponential equations. And then, as usual, resources, materials, animated PowerPoints, MP4 versions of lessons, classwork, homework, quiz, test, worksheets, activities, and tasks. All classwork sheets are closed exercise. From PowerPoints or MP4s, homework, quizzes, and test assignments available online with corrections provided after submission dates. And access for all. Available in over 100 languages. Available online 24/7. Closed caption for hearing impaired. Audio for sight impaired. Classwork is 242 points. Note taking is 4 points. Homework is 590 points. Test is 78 points. Your total is 914 points for week 9.